Sling TV has something for everyone. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. But no matter what you're looking for, you can watch it with Sling. Sports, news, and today's hottest shows. Plus, you can explore thousands of movies and TV shows on demand. And getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes. Stream on any device and record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space. Plus, you won't get locked into a long-term contract. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. Welcome to the Andy Staples Show, presented by Sling. It's rivalry week, everybody, and it's a big week in the Big Ten. And I got Scott Docterman here. Ari Wasserman is here. And guys, I need you to help me with something because, Scott, you cover Iowa. You've lived in Big Ten country for most of your life. Ari, you covered a Big Ten program for 10 years, even though it's Ohio State, which is really more of an SEC program, but still. I wrote a column on The Athletic, and it's about how this Michigan-Ohio State game has very high stakes, obviously, but it's interesting in the way it shakes out because basically Ohio State can either reinforce the status quo or Michigan can say, hey, look, this league could be up for grabs in the future because perhaps you don't have that prohibitive advantage that you used to have. There's also the added benefit potentially if Michigan wins that maybe the Big Ten gets 2 teams into the playoff. And man, the commenters got on me about that. They're like, I wouldn't expect a guy from the South to understand. We don't want 2 teams in the playoff. We'd rather go to the Rose Bowl. I'm like, that's stupid. What are you talking about? Like, is this just would if I were from Illinois and wrote the same thing, would you say that? Because all of those things about the Big Ten are true. But for whatever reason, if you were born south of the Mason-Dixon line or lived most of your life there, you can't possibly understand how those could be good things for the Big Ten.
Yeah, this is a strange reaction. I'm with you. I don't know what that means.
I think what they're thinking is the SEC people get all excited because they get 2 teams in and you get the SEC. But really, those are like South Carolina and Mississippi State fans that do the SEC chant. It's not Alabama and Georgia and LSU because they actually want to just win the national title. But it's interesting because there was some pushback on it. Like, why wouldn't you want the league to be more up for grabs rather than Ohio State just destroying everybody every year?
I don't get that because I understood it a few years ago, 5 years ago, the Rose Bowl complex, because Pasadena at, whatever time it is, Pacific time, when you see the sun going over the San Gabriel Mountains, it's majestic. It's like
it's beautiful.
It's the azaleas at Augusta. However, considering what's going to happen in 2 years, which is a lot of us are going to see the Rose Bowl, 4 or 5 times a year. It's not that big of a deal. And I thought that finally got out of most of the systems of people, but apparently not.
Well, I'm going to get my Southerner card revoked for this, Scott. I don't care about the azaleas in Augusta either. Like, I don't think it's a freaking golf course. Who cares?
Listen, I will say that when I've covered the Rose Bowl and those mountains turn purple, it is amongst one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
It's glorious.
Okay. So let's just make sure that that's understood. But if your point of the column, and I admittedly have not read it yet, so forgive me.
You're fired.
Is that people should root for Michigan so that the Big Ten is in a better standing nationally? Is that what you were getting at?
No, not even a better standing nationally. Because it means the rest of the Big Ten also has a chance. If Michigan can close that gap with Ohio State, it probably means there are other programs that can do that too.
Yeah.
Penn State would be one. USC should be able when it gets in.
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting dynamic because I thought last year was a one-off year because you can't just beat your rival 100 years in a row. Like, you're going to lose.
Right. Absolutely.
But Michigan is a heck of a lot better this year than I thought they were going to be. I think we all can agree on that too. And if Michigan goes into Ohio Stadium and beats them for the second consecutive year with a playoff spot on the line, like if you would have asked me 2 years ago, could Ohio State lose to Michigan 2 years in a row? I'd be like, it's literally impossible. And I'm very curious to see if the result of this game is going to, like, if we are analyzing this game wrong because of what happened last year. Because it's possible that if last year never happened, we'd be having this discussion. I'd be going on a Stars rant about how Ohio State's 15th best player is probably better than Michigan's best player. There's no way they could lose, and we'd be back to where we started. So, but if Michigan wins this game, then that means that Michigan has figured out the formula to beat Ohio State. Because this is a very good Ohio State team, and last year's team wasn't very good.
Yeah, this team's better than last year's.
This isn't the best team that Ohio State's had by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think this team could beat the 19 team or the 15 team if the 15 team was playing well, the 14 team, but it's a very good team. And last year's Ohio State team was probably the second worst since the Urban Meyer era began. So like last year's team was kind of Michigan got them right where they wanted them. If Michigan beats them this year, then that means that there's not a changing of the guard, because I still think Ohio State's probably the premier program of that league, but it kind of inspires hope that it can be done when most Michigan fans 2 or 3 years ago used to get mad at me for demanding this to be their standard.
And I don't even think Michigan has to beat them. I just think this game needs to be competitive.
Well, yeah, but I also think that in the Michigan fans' eyes, you got to beat them even when they're good. You got to make remake this a rivalry. I mean, this game matters to both fan bases more than any other. I remember a few years ago, I think it was somebody in Omaha wrote that, Ohio State needs to get ready for its rival Clemson. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, they have a clock in Ohio State. For it doesn't matter.
But for a bunch of the best decades, Scott, like Clemson was more of a thorn in their side than Ohio State was. They were losing battles to them in recruiting. They were losing to them in the playoff. Like, I understand, like, Ohio State's rival will always be Michigan. I'm not going to act like that's not always going to be the case. The rivalry and what it means to people in Columbus is unlike anything that I've seen elsewhere. And I'm sure it exists that way in Auburn and other places in the sport. But that town goes absolutely berserk this week. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's amazing.
Oh, it's wonderful.
But during the Urban Meyer era, there was a time and place, and I still think it exists with a large majority of the fans today, of Michigan is so behind us that we are more concerned about beating Clemson and beating Alabama, because we're not concerned about the Big Ten and the Rose Bowl anymore. We want to be the top 3 program or the best program in college football, and beating Michigan and winning the Big Ten wasn't enough to do that anymore. And when Urban took over, he took a huge look at the South and the SEC, and he said, we're going after them. He was obsessed with beating Alabama. Right. And he was obsessed with them for 2 years before they finally did it in 2014 and won the national championship. And then ever since that point, Ohio State has been stuck in this weird area of better than Michigan and best program in the conference, but a program that, despite being built like an SEC team, can't get it done on the main stage.
And this is what I wrote about in the column, is that Urban Meyer got there and didn't even bother looking at the rest of the Big Ten.
He made comments about how they need to step up the day he got hired.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and he was 100% right, because at that point, the Big Ten was, I call it like a coffee and crossed legs league, where, it's like the coaches got together, they had coffee, they all felt good about themselves. And he came in and reinforced it. And I actually had a conversation with Ferentz about all this. And he said, look, the one difference that they did that Tressel didn't do and nobody else has done is he went globally with his recruiting, as opposed to just, we're going to get the best players in Ohio and dabble in a few other places. Right. But it left a lot of good leftovers in that part of the world too. And the problem is with Michigan, that when he got hired, it coincided with one of the worst eras in Michigan history. When you've got Brady Hoke, you got Rich Rodriguez. I mean, that sent him back significantly. And so it wasn't until Harbaugh got there in 15 and 16 when they were pretty good, but they just didn't have the playmakers to match up with Ohio State. And now what I think it does, Andy, and I think you're right on this, is if Michigan can go out and do it again, it can show that, okay, there is a talent disparity between Ohio State and everybody else in the league. But the difference is you can make up for that talent disparity by going to the transfer portal, because they got an outstanding center out of it. And 2, your development can make the difference.
Right.
And if they can do that, everybody else can too.
Has strained my eyes whenever I've heard that. And I remember what was the Michigan-Ohio State game that you and I went to together, Andy, where you ridiculed me for putting ketchup on my chicken fingers? It
was either 18 or 19. It could have been.
It was the one in Ann Arbor.
Okay, then that was 19.
19. And after that game was over, and I think that was my last year on the beat, I wrote a column, and it was one of the most read stories I've written for The Athletic about how Urban Meyer killed the rivalry. And the reason why I wrote that is because the talent disparity between the two schools had been wider than ever before, and Michigan was never going to be able to out-tough Ohio State ever again. And that is wrong. But if Michigan is to beat Ohio State again, then that to me is a major issue for Ohio State, because you should not be able to recruit the way that they're recruiting and beat them in consecutive years with what they have on their roster.
Well, so like that brings up another comment from under my column that I thought was really interesting. And it was from an Ohio State fan. Basically, this game is a referendum on Ryan Day.
Well, I think that there's a lot. If Ohio State loses this game, there will be a lot of discussions amongst the fan base about whether he's the guy or not. Because I will say that it is an admirable thing to think, well, look, who was that guy that was in our comments? It was 2 weeks ago on Saturday night at midnight. Somebody wrote, Ohio State is built to put up 55 on Michigan State, and Michigan's built to beat Ohio State.
Yes.
Like, if that is true, like if that's actually what's happening, then you have a major problem in Columbus, because Ohio State is supposed to be built like Alabama, where they have insane athletes and insane linemen that will mush your bones into dust. There's no, like, they're not, like, the fact that Ohio State is viewed by some, and they were last year, a finesse team, means that there's something going wrong in the recruiting process, because this isn't supposed to happen.
And history tells us you're not allowed to beat everybody else and lose to Michigan. John Cooper says hi.
And the thing that really irritates me is that, like, what Michigan, it doesn't irritate me. I think it's interesting in the dialogue about recruiting is what Scott just said of, you can get a few guys in the portal and you can be out developing Ohio State and you can out grit them. And Andy, we talk about it on the show all the time. You're not supposed to be able to do that. Well, and if you are able to do that, it's a problem with the team that is loaded, not a gesture of how great you are. That's not the right plan for Michigan. With
the coaching of the team that is loaded. Exactly. So this Ricky Geiger in our live chat, he says, this is going to be like Georgia, Tennessee. Ohio State lost one time and everybody thinks Michigan's on that level. Just like Tennessee beating Bama made people think they could hang with the big boys. He continues, of the best 10 players that get drafted in this game, let's say the next 2 years, how many of them are on Michigan? 2, maybe? And that is an interesting point, because I will point out, who was the best player on the field in last year's game?
It was on Michigan's team.
He was Aiden Hutchinson.
Right.
So
and that's probably the first time in 10 years that's been the case.
Right. Yeah. Is the best player on the field on Michigan's team in this game?
It's not.
Right. That's where it's maybe Marvin Harrison Jr.
I think they might, if you did the player ranking, Scott, you're really good at this. You tell me, Scott. Mm-hmm. If you took JT Tuimoloau, CJ Stroud, Marvin Harrison, and you put them 1, 2, 3, is there a Michigan player that you would take over any of those 3 players?
Are you talking about for the draft or just overall?
Just in general, college football players.
If you're picking a football team.
Here's the thing, though. Blake Corum is the highest graded player in college football right now.
Do you think Blake Corum is better than those players?
Not better than Marvin Harrison. Nobody's better than Marvin Harrison. He's not going to go to New York, which is a shame, because he may be the best player in college football.
Well, Ricky says Blake Corum is good, but NFL-wise, he's not relevant. But this isn't. We're not talking about the draft.
All we care about is whether or not he's
Blake
a good
Corum is a
player.
really good college running back, and when Blake Corum is healthy and contributing, he makes Michigan's offense a very tough offense to stop. Now, we don't know how healthy he is. That is a legit question. Nor do we know how healthy Ohio State's 2 best backs are.
Exactly. I mean, with Williams and Henderson, they're down to, of course. But here's the difference between Ohio State and everybody else, including Michigan. They throw out number 3, true freshman running back, and he runs wild. Now, it was against Maryland, but still, their talent at the number 3 running back is better than number 1 for most people. And so Blake Corum to me is fantastic because he's a difference maker. And that offensive line is better this year than it was last year when it won the Joe Moore Award. So that's their best punch. But I do want to see what's J.J. McCarthy do when he's in trouble. What does he do? You know, because Ohio State will put them into adverse situations.
We've yet to see J.J. McCarthy have to throw Michigan to a win. And I think and JT Tuimoloau I think he may be the best player on the field, to be honest.
He might not be right now, but he will be by the end of next year.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Harold Perkins thing at LSU,
Yeah.
like just sort of scratching the surface of what they're
and then just
be.
the average player on Ohio State is better than the average player.
Now, I will say, so we probably should throw out last week for both teams. Both teams struggled mightily with teams that they should have beaten by more, but like
the last week, I think is interesting, Andy, because I think that you could make the case that Michigan's struggles were a result of losing their best player, and Ohio State's were just
Michigan played without a lot of their best players though. Like if it sounds like Luke Schoonmaker's going to be back for this game, that's a big safety valve.
Yeah,
for McCarthy in their offense. Mike Morris didn't play. That's their best pass rusher, and you've heard me preach this all year. Get pressure on CJ Stroud, and you have a chance. If you don't, you have no chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw him up close, and he struggled for a while. And and if that's the case this year, like last year, then I think Michigan has a decent chance. But the talent for talent, it's all Ohio State. But it's about, can Michigan out tough them, out bully ball them, and they tried that with Illinois, and Illinois is in that same realm. They're not the same talent, but Chase Brown is an equal, if you will, of Blake Corum. So and he got hurt too. But and I also look at the Maryland Ohio State game.
Mm-hmm.
That was not a very good game by the Buckeyes, but nobody had a good game last week. I mean, look how many upsets there were.
No, nobody in college. You're exactly right, Scott. That was a get through it, and I do think for both of these teams, they were trying to get into this game as healthy as humanly possible, but again, TreVeyon Henderson in a boot at the end of the Maryland game. CJ Stroud's limping at the end of the Maryland game. Jim Harbaugh on Monday, pretty tight-lipped on what anybody's going to be, whether it's Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. We don't know what they're going to be. If they have Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards and they're both healthy, then that's a scary offense.
Yeah, I think that the spread is 2 scores for a reason. And it was, I think, last year too. So, but this game is on the road, and I'm very much on high alert to see whether or not there's a return to normalcy here.
Right.
Because that to me is, I think a lot of, let's try to do this. If last year's game didn't happen, how would we be viewing this now?
Ohio State by 20.
Right? So that to me is interesting, because what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Last year happened, and they had 2 NFL players, including a top 5 pick on their defensive line, that aren't there anymore.
Right.
So we need to stop assigning value to last year's game, and we have to start valuing what we're going to get on Saturday. And I think that there is a chance that Ohio State loses because they got out-muscled again. But I think there's probably a better chance that Ohio State wins 44-17.
Well, and
that's
so
on the
question.
table.
Is Julian Fleming going to take a crossing route and turn it into a 60-yard gain? Because that's what happened in 2018 and 2019 when they just got their doors blown off. Was Ohio State took advantage of those mismatches and just made them look silly. Now, that part of the reason Harbaugh had to revamp his staff was because of those games. Right. He brought in Mike McDonald. They installed that Ravens defense. They're still running it under Jesse Mentor. So that's what I kind of want to see. Like the first time we see Julian Fleming on a crossing route, does he get tackled for a 6-yard gain, or does he break it loose? Because that'll tell us everything.
And you also have to consider this too. Like Ryan Day is a very mild-mannered person at the podium and on the sidelines. And I think a lot of people might just guess or think that he doesn't have much of a backbone because he's not very animated. That man has been physically, emotionally, and spiritually obsessed with Michigan for the past 365 days.
Oh, if Harbaugh had said that about me, I would be too.
Yeah. And what Harbaugh said, he reorganized his defensive staff. JT Tuimoloau has emerged as one of the best defensive linemen in the country, and he paid a coordinator $2 million a year to fight what Michigan does. And Michigan's going to come into the game doing the thing that they've been preparing for a year. So if Michigan is able to push Ohio State around and Blake Corum rushes for 175 yards and they win a game where their quarterback doesn't have to make a play for the second consecutive year, then you have to really question whether or not the right coach is the head coach at Ohio State. And that's like the scariest thing in the world to say, because you never would have thought about that a year ago.
He's lost one regular season Big Ten game. One.
Yeah, and if it's 2 and they're both the same opponent, that's a problem.
The coach. I know. But I'm just saying, This is the fourth season as his fourth season as their coach.
And they've played in
Just
a national title game.
one regular season Big Ten game. But
Yeah.
but this is where my friends in the comments section who are criticizing me because of where I'm from.
Thought process.
Exactly. I understand that mentality completely. If you didn't win the national title, you failed.
But it's not even about the national championship. I think if you were coming up short because your biggest rival in the country outgridded you for 2 years in a row, despite not being built that way, there's a fundamental issue within the program,
right?
That wasn't fixed with a year's notice.
It's a different program. Defensively, it's completely different. The way they're attacking is different. The toughness that they've showed last year versus this year, just completely different at Ohio State. And Michigan has been smart too, because as you talked about, Andy, those past games, Don Brown had an arrogant style about him. Let's cover these crossing routes with single coverage. Oh my God, you're going to get killed. That's why they give up 60 some odd points.
Yeah. If that guy is faster than that guy, you can't play man. You can't.
You have great linebackers, but they can't catch what they can't catch. So
I want you to highlight Lester Lee up here.
Oh yeah.
Is this year's talent gap smaller than the 16 OT game? That's the funniest thing, because people always talk about the 16 OT team, and Ohio State got their butts kicked that year in the playoff, right?
Right.
That was the worst Ohio State team since 2012. And that team was ranked 5th in the composite rankings, which is the lowest it's ever been ranked at any point since 2012. And that year, Michigan, I believe, was 8th. So the difference was a 3-spot difference. And this year
was the smallest gap.
It was the smallest gap there is. Yeah. Now it's 3 to 15 or 14, which is an 11-spot gap. And when you look at the teams that are in between them, it's actually quite big. So here's the thing that I wanted to make a comment about, which is, about that talent gap is J.J. McCarthy was supposed to be the equalizer of this. When Michigan made this quarterback change, he was supposed to be putting in the 5-star guy who can make things happen on his own, who could do incredible things in the passing game.
It's supposed to be Caleb Williams or Drake May.
And I think, and I think that the fact that he is not Drake May yet has created more of he's a liability thought process when we should be talking about J.J. McCarthy being a difference maker. And the question is could J.J. McCarthy be a difference maker in this game, or do they have to hide him the way that they would have had to hide Cade McNamara last year?
I don't think they have to hide him. I think what they might have to run into is the only way they win is cut him loose and hope it works out. We haven't seen him had to be cut loose yet. We don't know what it looks like if you say, JJ, go win this game. We've never seen that.
I mean, this team, the way it plays and it works, and it's the easiest style of football, which is hand the ball to the guy who could run for 250 yards per game, and you have the best offensive line against everybody you face. They're better than their defensive lines, and that's worked. It's worked well in every single game. That's not going to be the case on Saturday. He can run for 100 yards, but it might be at 3.5 to 4 yards a carry. So he's going to have to make plays. Now, Drake May, he throws it all over the yard. That's great. McCarthy hasn't had to do that. He's going to have to do that on Saturday, or it will be at minimum a two touchdown differential.
Guys, here's what I think is so exciting about this and why Michigan's win last year was so significant. We've spent 23 minutes talking about this game. It's very exciting. If Michigan had won last year, we would have spent 2 minutes and we would have said Ohio State by 20. And we'll talk to you next year about
And this is the internal debate that I've had with Ohio State fans for much of the past 10 years, is as much as it stings for them to lose to Michigan, you kind of have to root for them to be good because the sport is better as a result of this game being important. Like I covered so many of these games that were just 30-point blowouts that just were afterthoughts.
I mean, this game has incredibly high stakes.
And news conferences that we had to force hatred in. And it's just like, actually, there is hatred right now. Yeah. And that's what this is about. And I think that, for the most part, if Ohio State were to win this game, it would probably be the most gratifying win over Michigan that they've had since 2006. And if Michigan wins this game, then there's a huge statement being made about the rankings of where programs belong in the Big Ten and whether or not Ohio State's in danger of losing their spot at the top.
Yeah, and you know who does one of these? He's rubbing his hands together like, oh boy,
behind the tree,
Lincoln Riley. If Michigan can beat Ohio State and show that gap doesn't mean as much, Lincoln Riley can go, well, guess what? When I get there, there won't even be a gap.
Well, if he goes to Minnesota in the middle of November, there will be a gap.
Wait, what are you talking about? Like in the playoff, you mean?
No, I'm talking about when Lincoln Riley gets to the Big Ten in 2 years.
Oh, sorry. I honestly forgot they were going there. That's how weird that move is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I thought you meant like when they play Ohio State in 2
No,
weeks.
I mean when they get to the Big Ten.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
presuming that Lincoln Riley's recruiting will be to the point that.
Yeah. Well, I think that Lincoln Riley was the Big Ten's best chance of neutralizing Ohio State, even more so than Michigan. And like the thing about it is, like, even if Michigan wins this week, this plan that you guys are talking about of get good players in the portal that can help, supplement weaknesses and out tough them is not a consistent winning plan.
No,
like that's not something that you're going to do to sustain the rivalry for 15 years.
Yeah,
because eventually the talent might not win out this year. It didn't win out last year, but eventually over the long run, the talent will win out.
Right.
And I'm wondering, like, for me, if Michigan is supposed to use this 2-year window of success to advance in the recruiting rankings to a place where they're bringing in a similar caliber athlete.
Or does it allow Penn State to pick off one or two from Ohio State? Does it allow the Mel Tucker thing's blowing up in Michigan State's face right now, but the idea is he's supposed to upgrade.
But Ohio State doesn't really even recruit against these guys very much.
Not yet.
Like Ohio State's down there recruiting with Final Fours of A&M, LSU, and Bama. Like they're not. There's like Julian Fleming is from Pennsylvania, and there are certain guys that they want in Pennsylvania and Jersey that Penn State's in on, but there aren't a lot of battles that Ohio State's like in Florida and Texas and California.
Haven't I explained this a million times about Kirby Smart and Nick Saban? It's not about beating them for everyone. It's about beating them for about 2 to 3 a year.
Oh, sure. Yeah, right. And I think that would mean that they would have to go 100% in their conversion total to do that, because I think they're only in 2 or 3 battles a year with these guys.
I don't mean 2 or 3. I don't mean Penn State has to beat Ohio State for 2 or 3 years. I mean everybody has to beat Ohio State.
Yeah,
everybody,
I know. And then
everybody, not Alabama, not LSU, and it's possible. And as Scott pointed out, there's an equalizer situation going on with the portal, being able to grab somebody and plug them in and play right away, getting the older person who can contribute. Olu Atimi is the guy this year for Michigan. So it's fascinating because it's changing.
And now, the question you have to ask yourself too is if college football is genuinely or generally not as dominant at the top as usual this year because the transfer portal's already played out.
I think that's part of it, but I still think a big part of that is the COVID year, where it allowed teams to get old, stay old. And the teams like Ohio State, like Alabama, where the guys were going to the NFL after 3 and 4 years, they still lost those guys. Yeah. But other programs did not lose everybody they would have lost. And when those guys wash out, because that's all going to come out in the wash here in the next couple of years, I do wonder if we see the dominant powers rise a little bit after that, or is the portal situation causing them to get pulled back to the mat, to the pack? So we'll find out. When we come back, though, we're going to talk about the Big Ten West. And I want to talk about Scott.
Where are you staying?
Got the full experience in Minnesota last week. We got to talk about that when we come back. Sling TV has something for everyone. All your favorite shows on your favorite channels, all right at your fingertips. What you watch is up to you. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. So if you're looking for sports, Sling's got you covered with pro and college football and basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, golf, racing, and so much more. Sling also has reality TV, so you can keep up with the latest gossip with today's hottest shows on channels like TLC, Bravo, MTV, and more. And don't forget about news. Get up to date with today's most trusted sources like MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. Feeling adventurous? Explore thousands of movies and shows on demand. So what kind of mood are you in? No matter your answer, Sling has what you need. Getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes. You can stream on any device, and you can record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space. And the best part, you can pause or customize your subscription at any time. So check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. I have 10,000 pictures of my kids on my phone, but no idea how I'm going to compile all of them into an actual story for them. Artifact completely solves this problem. At the end of each year, they create a narrated video yearbook about each of my kids. Artifact sets me up with a professional interviewer to talk about my children throughout the year. I add photos wherever I want, and the Wizards of Artifact edit it all together into a video yearbook. It's easy, fun, and affordable. The grandparents absolutely love it. You know what? One day, this is going to be an amazing gift for the kids themselves. You might remember that Artifact is a longtime sponsor of this show, and they still do life stories of older family members. But now they have a product for parents like me watching my kids grow up way too fast and wanting to hold on to those memories while they're fresh. You can sign up to try it for yourself for less than $9 a month when you use my code STAPLES at checkout. So go to heyartifact.com/kids and enter the code STAPLES to get started. That's heyartifact.com/kids and enter the code STAPLES. Well, we just talked Ohio State and Michigan. The winner of that game has to play somebody in the Big Ten title game. And that somebody may be the team that Scott covers. That's right. The Iowa Hawkeyes can win the Big Ten West by beating Nebraska on Black Friday. They're doing this because they beat Minnesota and because Illinois lost to Michigan. But Scott, I got to ask you, you were up in Minneapolis for that game. It was really, really cold. What's that feel like?
Yeah, it was the second coldest game in stadium history for college football,
Which is saying something for Minnesota.
Right. The only one was the Dilly Bar game against Ohio State that was colder, but the wind chill.
And I was at that one, so I'm going to tell you about it when you're done. I was at that one.
And I've lived through this type of experience a lot, but I'll tell you what, when you go out on that field and you feel that wind whip through you and it's -1, -2 with the wind chill, it hits different in Minnesota, even more so than the plains of Iowa. It is just like, oh, it takes your breath away. It feels like, frozen needles attacking you. So to see the wind whipping and the players trying to work out. It was funny to watch the Gophers all take on the field. There's like a group of them. I think they're the linebackers all taking their shirts off, running around in pregame. And I'm like, you're not psyching out anybody, dude. The other team's going to
not anybody from Iowa. If you're playing Florida State, maybe, yeah. Not if you're playing Iowa.
I remember in 2014, I went to the Mall of America with Doug Lamarice and Bill Landis the night before. We watched Dumb and Dumber 2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I've never been more disappointed in a movie in my entire life. But I will say that when we landed in Minneapolis, it was fine. And they do a good job of having indoor tunnels. But we walked out of the hotel the Friday on the way to the Mall of America. And I'll never forget this, but the wind, as the automatic doors opened, hit me in the face. And it was by far the coldest gust of air I've ever felt. And it was almost physically painful. And then we went to the game the next day and we saw the Dilly Bar thing. And I was just like, God. And also I would watch an Unsolved Mysteries episode of how JT Barrett had an 80-yard touchdown run in that game with a DB running side by side with him for 60 yards. Go watch the replay of that touchdown. I've never seen a slower person run for that long with a DB in chase in my entire. So that there must have been a Angels in the outfield scenario going on there. But man, that was the coldest day of my entire life, Scott. And I've been in cold weather before. I've been in New York in the winter. I've been in Chicago in the winter. That was the coldest I've ever been. It's
different. And the coldest I've ever been was when I walked from the basketball arena to a hotel about a quarter of a mile away in mid-January. And it was literally 25 degrees below zero. Oh. And it was the misery just doesn't even, begin to describe how bad of a short walk that was. But the other day wasn't that bad considering, but my God, I mean, when the wind is going out there, you felt for the players on the field. I mean, to try to go.
Could you imagine getting hit down there in that?
No, or trying to catch a ball. I mean, I guess most receivers wearing gloves, but
of course,
all barehanded. That it'd feel like catching a frozen turkey, basically.
Iowa won that game though, because that is where Iowa thrives, and Iowa is going to destroy Nebraska on Saturday.
But that didn't look like a typical Iowa game, Scott. They got run all over.
Yeah, they did.
And it was the defense creating turnovers at the most opportune times that saved their butts.
Say that again.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's it was, and well, Mo Ibrahim is very underrated. I've called him
Yeah.
beast mode for like all 6 years that he's been there because he just has this physical way about him where he's like a mouse where he squirts through a little hole and then he just pops right through it, and you can't get a good grip on him, and he always falls forward. He's never really fallen back, and that was the most yards Iowa gave up to a single running back since 1993. So it was just 263 yards or whatever it was, but then at the end, his 14th carry in a 16 play drive, Jack Campbell, All-American linebacker, pops him and forces a fumble. Then a series later, he intercepts a ball, which if this wouldn't have mattered, if they would have gone to overtime and lost, would have been one of the biggest blunders in Big Ten history. He returns it 77 yards for a touchdown, but the line judge calls him out of bounds at the 45, and he's not out of bounds. They blow the whistle. And I'm like, why are you blowing a whistle? You're probably going to rip your lip off. It's so cold out here.
Exactly.
But, they didn't call a single penalty for the first time in a game since 1986.
They were cold. They want to get the hell out of there.
And there was more holding going on than there is at a wedding, So, I mean, it was crazy, but still.
When I'm at the wedding, they're holding on to me though, because I'm fly.
Oh,
yeah, you're pretty fly.
We lost a lot of good men out there that day.
Yeah.
Playing for the Yankees?
Yeah. Unruly trade. Bad trades and unruly fans. Like I said, I don't want to talk about it.
So, Scott, this Black Friday game, which I'm now just envisioning the Sean Eichhorst attempt to stop playing this game on Black Friday. But this is a chance for Iowa to, I guess, shove all our faces in it. Like they're going to win the Big Ten West. They're going to play for the Big Ten title. It's still not the prettiest offense in the world, but my guess is though they're going to look okay against Nebraska.
They probably will. I mean, their first 2 drives, they scored against them, and then their best player got hurt his knee, and Sam Laporta. And if he's not going to be able to play, then it's going to bring them down to the field even more so. But, there's a couple different lines that you could think of with this team. I mean, we've talked about their offensive challenges all season long, and it was funny, and then it wasn't. And now it's kind of like, what really happened here? But I think really what you look at is, damn, the resiliency of this team is pretty freaking amazing. Because to be the way that it was, to get annihilated at Ohio State, and to have you had Doug on, and we've had those same questions regarding, nepotism and your program, and yet all you do is you go out and you beat 4 straight division rivals by 94-36, and your defense is playing like this. I mean, it says something about the coaching staff that he didn't lose the players, and it says something about the defense and special teams and the offense to an extent that they're not willing to give up. So are they in the same ballpark? Not this year as a Michigan or Ohio State, certainly not Ohio State. But I do think that it shows that this is a pretty tough-minded team, and you got to kind of give them a salute for that.
And now imagine they had a good offense.
Exactly.
Because they could beat a Michigan or Ohio State if they had an adequate offense. They could.
Right. Well, 6 years ago when they beat, that was the strangest game ever when they beat Ohio State. But they did have 3 first-round draft picks on offense, 2 tight ends at a tackle, and they had some other, Alaric Jackson was starting in the NFL as a tackle. So they had the players and a quarterback who threw 68 touchdown passes.
And Ohio State went into that game without game planning how to cover a tight end, which is fascinating.
Exactly.
The thing that's crazy to me, more than anything, is that this is a reinforcement of how great of a coach Kirk Ferentz is, in my opinion. We have ragged on him a lot, and we have laughed at Iowa's, situation this year, but the man has consistently produced. Yep. There's no question about it. And the thing that is so tough for me to swallow is that, like you said, if he wasn't stubborn in this one area, Iowa's team would potentially be in the top 10 of the college football playoff rankings right now.
Yeah.
It's even if you go back and you look at the Iowa's loss 54-10 to Ohio State, how many of those points were the offense's fault? 27 of them? I think that it is a legitimate thing that if they had a solid offense that could move the ball at least and get first downs, that Ohio State would only manage to score 31 or 34 points on them at the
And
most.
they would have beaten Iowa State. They would have beaten Illinois. The Michigan game would have been incredibly close. It's just.
I mean, at the
it's
very
amazing
least,
to
I
me.
think that they would be 9-2 right now.
Yeah. No question. And a lot of things bottomed out for this team this year. The offensive line is really, really young. I mean, their 18 and 19 classes either bombed or were all injured in the offensive line. So they're starting guys who are all three or second year guys. So they've really struggled there. Wide receiver, you lose Charlie Jones to Purdue because your offensive scheme isn't up to date. Then, with Charlie Jones, they probably win those 2 games that they lose. So but then you also combine the fact that the scheme is not relevant to winning big championships. You can win division championships, but not the Big Ten championship, not get to the playoff. And so they need to really revamp that. But I do think you got to give him credit because, again, we've seen it so many times. Teams 3 and 4, they lost 3 straight games, got blown off the field. Everybody's making fun of them. Everybody's, it's the worst possible situation. And yet to turn it around mentally and fight. And this game, they were bruised. They were battered against Mo Ibrahim, yet they found a way to win. And they did that against Wisconsin and Purdue on the road and now and Northwestern at home, which, I mean, that's not saying much, but I think if they do win the division though, I think it's one of those where you look at Kirk Ferentz and go, man, you can coach because your team didn't give up. And that's really
right.
The thing that I think is so funny about this last Iowa win too, is that they gave up 260 yards of rushing offense to the other team. And the final score was still 13-10. Like, it was like, no matter what happens in between the start and finish of an Iowa game, like you're always going to end at the same destination.
There's a reason we do the Iowa total in every pick show. And we do the Iowa Nebraska total in this pick show as well.
But do you think they're going to cover? I know this isn't early for the pick show, but like I think that they are going to cover the spread and beat the crap out of Nebraska.
I think you're probably right.
Friday. Scott, are you with me on that? You think they're going to get it done, or?
I think they could either cover or it's going to be so close you don't know who's going to win until the very end. Because it seems like under Scott Frost, like all 4 games were right down to the very end, even though the team wasn't very good. So I don't know if they're going to flex, if Nebraska is going to try to flex its rivalry muscles, or if Nebraska is going to say, you know what, let's just get this thing over with. They lost the other day by 1 point to Wisconsin. If Iowa does what it needs to do in the first quarter, this game won't be close.
And it's funny because you would think on the surface that Iowa's style of play is a sloppy Nebraska kryptonite. Like if you're a sloppy team that loses 1 possession games all the time, going against a team that's technical, that didn't have a penalty in the game and punts with precision that you would get out of a sniper scope. I mean, like it's like the last thing that you would want to face. So, like, I personally think that with the rejuvenation of the way that they've been playing and Indianapolis right on the line, you should get your St. Elmo reservations all set up and get your hotel going because you're going to Indy,
Izzy's has the same shrimp cocktail, and sometimes they have the spinatus steak, which is the best cut of steak that you can possibly
I went
get.
to Harry and Izzy's last time, and I still said I went to St. Elmo. Isn't it the same business?
They're sister restaurants, so
owned by the same person. It's the same ingredients.
Yeah, and it is the same shrimp cocktail.
Yeah. So what?
It's just harder to get a table at St. Elmo. That's pretty much all it is. And that is your Indianapolis food guide. But we got to talk food when we come back because Thanksgiving is but a few days away now, and we're gonna have our Thanksgiving side draft. We're going Hokie drive time radio on you. But guess what? We have experts in the field, unlike Weenie in the butt in the morning. So we're gonna
Weenie
go.
in the butt.
Yeah, I stole that from Family Guy.
I know you did. Weenie in the butt.
But we gotta have the draft. I didn't even think about a draft order. Let's just say Ari, Scott, and then me, and we'll snake it 5 rounds. Thanksgiving sides.
Ari, Scott. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like. I know exactly what you want.
You're a great drafter. When we had our 5 restaurants that you could only eat from the rest of your life, and you went Cheesecake Factory,
I felt like Bill Belichick during that.
It was incredible. We'll talk about it when we come back. After a holiday spent entirely in the kitchen, it's nice to know your meal plan is covered. It's not just leftover turkey sandwiches. With Freshly, you get delicious, satisfying meals delivered fresh to your door. Just heat and eat, no cooking or cleanup required. And Freshly's Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals are some of the biggest and best of the year. $175 off your first 7 orders. We all know that during this season, things can get stressful. You do the big cooking day on Thanksgiving, but the days around it, you've got a lot going on. You got family coming into town. You got people coming, going. What are you going to do for dinner? Well, if you're using Freshly, you already know. You've got a great menu, so many options. I was looking at the chicken tikka masala, the protein-packed chicken parm, the white bean turkey chili bowl. There's something for everybody, whether you need gluten-free, any sort of dietary restriction that you got to deal with, they've got something for you that you're going to love. You can pick from a rotating menu of over 35 tasty, balanced meals for every dietary preference. Find a flexible plan that fits your lifestyle, whether you're calorie conscious or gluten-free, plant-based pasta lover, or all about the meat and potatoes. They have it all. So order today and get $175 off your first 7 orders at freshly.com/Andy22 for a limited time. That's freshly.com/Andy22 for $175 off your first 7 orders. Freshly.com/Andy22. $175 off your first 7 orders. Welcome back. Now time for the Thanksgiving side draft. That's right. It's like Drive Time Radio, except better. We are going to figure out who has the best plate at the end of this. You get so the first time my wife had Thanksgiving dinner with my family, we use paper plates, and if we're feeling fancy, Chinette, and you do the Chinette platter where you can get as much as humanly possible onto one, vessel.
Huge plate.
Yeah. But she was just horrified. She's like, you don't use real plates? Now, flash forward over 20 years, and we barely use real plates at home on normal days. Like, we use paper plates all the time.
I want you to want to do the dishes. No, I am with you. It's a battle that I have in my household quite often of when to use paper plates and when to use actual plates. And I'm pro paper plate every time because I just want to throw stuff in the trash and be left alone after dinner. But okay, so we have to set up some parameters here.
Okay.
Andy,
yes.
because that there are certain situations where you could say something general and that takes away other things that are in that category.
A whole category. Understood.
So for instance, and I don't want to give away anything, but we all know who is cornbread in the roll family.
Oh, cornbread is its own thing. Like if you're gonna give us a bread, it has to be a specific bread.
So you can't just say rolls.
It can be a specific kind of rolls, but not rolls. Right.
Okay. And mashed potatoes, there are other types of potatoes. So if you take mashed potatoes, you could still take another potato dish later.
Oh, you could absolutely take potatoes au gratin or like a hash kind of dish. That's
scallop
all
potatoes.
Absolutely. That's still on the table. Yes.
Okay. Stuffing's number 1 for me. And I had a hard time with that because I know you're going to take macaroni and cheese. And I thought that there was a chance that stuffing could fall to the second round. But I don't know if you could even have a Thanksgiving plate without it on it.
Here's the weird thing about meat. And so where I come from, it's dressing, not stuffing, and
whatever you want to call it.
Well, no, but it's cooked in a dish as opposed to cooked in a turkey, like in the cavity of the turkey. I like stuffing when it's cooked in the actual cooked in the cavity of the turkey stuff. I like them both. But it's actually probably not my favorite thing and probably would have fallen to somebody much later.
Can I say dressing / stuffing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think it's generally the same.
Here's the thing that I need to say, and I want to know your opinion on this, is that I like macaroni and cheese better than anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think macaroni and cheese is the best thing that you can eat on Thanksgiving. But as it pertains to what my plate is going to be as in the Thanksgiving,
as you're planning it out,
you have to have stuffing in the mix because I think stuffing is Thanksgiving.
See, but I can do without it. I told
Scott,
you.
Would either of you taken stuffing in the first round if I didn't take it?
I would have taken it. I was figuring it was going to be that one was going to be my pick.
Okay, so I'm happy I did it.
What do you have, Scott? What's your number one?
The one thing I will say is stuffing and dressing kind of is goes in between in where I live, kind of the southeast Iowa, Illinois area, a lot of family. It's kind of interchangeable, so it works both ways. I'm going with mashed potatoes.
All right.
Mashed potatoes are the the
The Iowa football of sides.
the cleanup hitter of baseball on Thanksgiving. So yes, you've got to have mashed potatoes next to your stuffing / dressing to make it a real Thanksgiving dinner.
I am going with the king of all sides, mac and cheese. It is the best side under any circumstance, on any day of the week, any day of the year, any holiday, any occasion. Macaroni and cheese is the best side. And I stole a recipe from it's the Clarkston Union mac and cheese, Clarkston, Michigan. I had it at Union Woodshop, which is their sister barbecue restaurant, when I was up there covering I think it was the NCAA basketball tournament, was at Auburn Hills. And I put it in my mouth. Like, this is the best mac and cheese in the history of the planet. It is so good. I found their recipe on the internet. I've been making it ever since. I don't do it justice. Like, if you get a chance, if you are, north of Detroit on I-75 and have a chance, Clarkston Union or Union Woodshop, they both serve the mac and cheese. It's incredible. Like, I cannot recommend that enough. But mac and cheese, I've had people argue with me, like, it's not a Thanksgiving side. It doesn't matter. It's the best thing available.
But this is the thing about this draft that will determine who wins. I'm putting together a Thanksgiving plate, and you're putting together the best possible plate with dishes that happen to be at Thanksgiving.
I'm Ohio State. Yes, I am putting together the best collection of athletes.
Yeah. What am I then?
You're Jim Harbaugh.
Oh boy. I'm Jim Harbaugh weird. So I guess that makes sense. All right. So you have another pick then?
So I get another pick. I will take Parker House rolls.
All right.
And so, Ari, do you remember when we went to Snack Bar in Oxford?
Oh, I forgot.
They made just an incredible version of Parker House rolls there with fresh butter. It was incredible. But these are the ones that are kind of clumped together that you have to pull them apart. I love those. And you just load them up with butter. And you can just see, this is the problem with my plate list. So I pile on the turkey and then the different sides, and then I just put as many Parker House rolls as I can on it. It's very, it's very tricky to move with it afterward because it all might come tumbling down.
I think I won the draft already because I already had it planned out.
Well, Scott's got the next pick.
No, I know, but I think he's going to blow it. I can just tell by his face the way he's contemplating, and that means panicking. You know those people that you go to dinner with and have the menu in front of them, and they know what they want to order.
Yes, when you ordered a panini and I ordered a lamb shank. Yes, I remember that.
I'm going with the king of desserts, and that's pumpkin pie.
Oh,
because I'm not a pumpkin spice guy. I'm not a pumpkin latte guy, but damn it, I'm a pumpkin pie guy.
Nothing wrong with that.
I'll eat that 10, 11 months a year. So
that doesn't go on your primary plate.
Does on mine.
Yeah.
Okay. It
I don't know what you're missing.
There are no rules on Thanksgiving.
There are no rules. You're right. Okay, that's fine. All right. So I'm going to stick with Thanksgiving domination right now. I'm going to go cranberry sauce.
Oh, very nice.
Because it has to be a part of the plate.
Real cranberry sauce?
Ocean spray, the shit in the can.
Can shaped. Right?
Yeah, can shaped.
My wife's favorite is the can shaped cranberry sauce. Loves that.
And then on the way back down, cornbread.
Yep. Cornbread. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
And that's a wrap, guys. Sorry.
Now, savory cornbread, sweet cornbread.
Savory cornbread.
Okay.
Well, see, you can just give me cornbread. You don't get
They're both good.
You don't get to pick cornbread now. You lost the cornbread. The way can't.
No. I'm not going to pick cornbread. I'm asking you what your favorite.
Oh, okay.
Is.
I'm defending my draft here.
Yeah, no.
Because I can't just be like Shell's macaroni and cheese now.
Yeah. What is your favorite cornbread?
I like the savory cornbread.
Okay. All right.
But I like it when it has a little chunks of actual corn in it.
Of course. Throw some jalapeno in there.
I'm always going to have savory over sweet. You know that about me.
Absolutely. Well, it is strange because like my wife prefers sweet. I prefer savory, but when I make it at home, I make it sweet because that's what she likes.
You love your wife, yeah.
I do. But if I had my druthers, it would be the savory, and then you just loaded up the butter. But I'd throw the jalapenos in there too because that's jalapeno cornbread is awesome. Scott, you are next.
I'm going with creamed corn casserole.
All
it is
right.
phenomenal. It's great in this part of the world where sweet corn is prevalent, and cranberry sauce looks nice on the plate. I've never touched it. I look at it. It looks pretty. Take the picture now. Move on. But
It's got to be on the plate. Has to be on the plate.
I am glad we're in the casserole zone because I am going with sweet potato casserole, and then I am following that with green bean casserole. Why have the healthy version when you can turn it into candy with the sweet potatoes? And then the green bean casserole, again, why have a healthy dish when you can make it completely unhealthy?
Yeah.
Now, where does gravy fit into this?
I think you get gravy because you have mashed potatoes.
Yeah, you get gravy there.
Okay.
We should have said that because yeah, you get the gravy with your mashed potatoes, but you could also pour it on your turkey. You could pour it on your dressing / stuffing, however you want to do that. But
which makes mashed potatoes probably the most versatile first round pick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it can play both sides of the line of scrimmage.
It's Desmond. It's Deion Sanders.
Yeah, it is Deion. It is the Deion Sanders of holiday dishes. I'm going to go with cottage cheese, and I like what?
I've never heard anybody eating cottage cheese on Thanksgiving in my entire
life.
What?
This is amazing.
Is that a normal side dish? I'm not even joking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Andy?
I mean, yeah.
I've never heard of this. Never.
Okay.
Not even once.
Hey.
My next pick's gonna be pizza, so you win. Okay.
My next pick's chips and salsa. No,
man, it's a staple. We've had it for. I think I've had it for all 48, 49 years I've ever had.
Wow, really? Nicole's gonna be horrified.
Wait a second, like at like other people's houses too, or is this a document tradition?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think most people's houses they've had it. So
is that part of the country really?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm blown away that it's that disinteresting or similar. You know, we always have it. So I guess I didn't think that it was so
wow,
out of
very
sorts.
interesting. I'm fascinated now. I have so many questions. Like, is it just a plain lump of cottage cheese? You put it in a salad, like in a green salad, or?
I put it on the side so it doesn't run everywhere. You know, It's usually by the mashed potatoes, and it just kind of sits there.
Here's my problem with the cottage cheese. One, it's too healthy. Two, that really fills you up. Like if you want to kill your appetite, cottage cheese will do it.
Well, my fifth round pick will actually eliminate all of that. So.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna level with you, Scott. That's very bizarre. I've never heard of this before.
Go ahead. I love when Ari calls somebody weird. That's the best part.
I'm not even saying Scott is weird. I'm saying that is bizarre. Like I've never heard that before, ever.
It is it. I have never it is an oddly healthy choice on a decidedly unhealthy holiday.
I've never heard of it being healthy. It's just part of it for me. I don't know.
Wow.
I put up a poll and we've got 19 votes and 100% of the people have said no. So I don't know.
Ari,
I've never
heard. You got your last two picks.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm actually kind of shook now. Okay, I'm gonna take scalloped potatoes.
Very nice. Good choice.
And I'm trying to think about whether or not I should double down with the carbs. But double down with the bread.
Do it.
Is doubling down with the bread like too fat of me?
Not. You're talking to me. The other day I went to Texas Roadhouse and had 12 rolls and wished I'd had 20.
But I'll be the only person that doesn't have greens on their plate.
Who cares? It's Thanksgiving.
Okay. I'm really panicking right now because I want to win.
You're doing very well. You have some classics on.
I want it to be like okay, you know what I'm gonna do?
I mean, Scott just did the Al Davis pick. Darius Hayward Bay. What?
Scott just got disqualified. I don't even know if we can vote. Okay.
Hey, it's Janikowski. At least I'm going to the Hall of.
Okay, scalloped potatoes, and the last pick is Pillsbury crescent rolls.
Yes, I was wondering if somebody was going to go here. We did that in my family for years and years, and you you just keep putting pan after pan. You crack those tubes. You put
So, and here's
pan
the
after
thing.
pan in the oven, and you make a giant basket of them. And I'll just grab a handful.
The reason why I had to take a second carb roll is because what I've created here is the perfect sandwich that you can make, which is the stuffing cranberry Pillsbury roll sandwich as the leftovers. Now, I wish I had gravy to put on there. I don't have gravy, but if you have the turkey, because everybody gets the turkey, the cranberry sauce and the stuffing with the crescent roll, stuff it with all that. It's a wrap.
Let me throw something out here because what you just described sounds amazing, and especially if you get to put the gravy on it too. I know it's amazing because I've had it. If you go to Pom Pom's Sandwicheria in Orlando, Florida, they have a Thanksgiving dinner sandwich, and it is exactly what you just described. All of that stuff and with gravy. It is amazing. Absolutely amazing. So
you gotta read these responses. I wrote, is cottage cheese a Thanksgiving side? Yes or no? There's 202 votes. 97.5% said no. Oh my God, who hurt you if you have cottage cheese as a side?
Reported. This is incredible.
Laugh my ass off. What? No, question mark. Definitely not, but I'm eating it if it's there. What? Hell nah. What's wrong with you? Apparently, I need to listen to today's pod to figure out what the hell this lunatic is talking about.
97.5%.
I've never.
At this point.
Damn, my taste buds are like Iowa's offense. But,
this is well. All right, Scott, you got one more pick.
I don't know where to go now.
Redeem yourself.
Oh my God, I'm going to probably dig a bigger hole.
Do it.
I'm going to go with black olives, baby.
Wow, not what I was expecting.
What? Are you
Yes.
messing with us? What do you eat?
No,
Black
seriously.
olives. What are you doing? Are you making a
Seriously.
caprese
You guys
salad?
put out a tray of cheese and olives and things to pick on
No.
before the dinner, or
No.
this is at the dinner?
Yeah, this is one of about 15 things we have. I didn't know a specific name of a roll. I'd go with that.
So as an avowed black olive lover, like I put black olives on my pizza. I think black olives are tremendous. And I love black olives as a, hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah.
Have never had it in Thanksgiving dinner proper. That's very interesting.
Yes. So I have it usually right there with the cottage cheese, and then dressing / stuffing and mashed potatoes and our cream corn casserole and green bean casserole. All of it's right there, and that's just something I like to have. So black olives. The other one I was going to throw out there, and this one I figured I would really get panned for is celery. And the reason why is it loosens up all the things around it so you can eat more.
Well, and the celery also is a nice palate cleanser. That's another. So you sound like someone who, like, your family has the components of the charcuterie board just out with the dinner. And I will say that that's something that in the last few family gatherings we've gotten real big into the charcuterie. And as one of our family friends calls it, Lunchables for adults. It is great to have just a board of meat and cheese and olives just out to pick on before any big meal. I highly recommend it, other than the fact that you tend to fill up before the big meal. But it sounds like you just have it as part of the dinner proper, which, again, I don't really have a problem with. Those are all things I like. I don't think there should be rules about when you can consume them.
Right. Well, I tell you, based on the cottage cheese pick, it's like somebody's gonna have to report a murder or something on Twitter. The way this is
Exactly.
going.
So I have one more pick. I see a lot of the people in the comments putting this. Don't worry, I was headed there anyway. Pecan pie, of course, or pecan pie, depending on where you're from. So, but pecan pie with some ice cream, with some vanilla ice cream, there is not much better than that. I'm so hungry right now.
I honestly, I am so, those, that scene in Waterboy when Adam Sandler's love interest comes over to his house and
Vicky Valancourt?
Vicky Valancourt. Yeah, I forgot that name. Vicky Valancourt comes over to the house and Kathy Bates, the mother who hates foosball, is cooking, and she just puts down charred alligators on a stick in front of them. That's what I kind of feel like it would be like to go eat Thanksgiving meal at Scott's house right now. I don't know. I'm not offended. I am if I went there and I wasn't, and I didn't, and nobody gave me a heads up, I'd be like, what's going on here?
I am fascinated by this. Like,
You still
I
have
would
all the
just
stuff
wanna
we drafted
watch-
too, though, right?
I want to watch
Yeah.
everybody make their selections with all of this out there. I feel like we could really psychoanalyze some people.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying it's bizarre.
What he's saying, Scott, is he thinks you're Jim Harbaugh weird.
Man, I guess my part of the country's got some different tastes, some eclectic tastes here.
Well, I
But
was gonna say if you go one state over from you, you're into chili and cinnamon roll territory.
yeah,
Which odd combination, delicious
I
combination.
think we should keep running this back though, because like I almost took pecan pie
Mhm.
instead of Pillsbury crescent rolls, but I think if we ran it back one more round, I'd be able to put the bow on this thing.
What's the bow you want to put on?
I would have.
I'm gonna
I'll
give you a
take
bonus
cherry
pick.
pie or apple pie.
There you
One of
go.
the two
Okay.
pies.
That's good. I'm
But
good with
pecan-
fruit pie.
How do you say it? What's the proper way? Is it pecan or pecan?
It depends on where you're from. Like
Okay.
where I am originally from, like with my original accent, it would be pecan. That's
Okay.
where
I've said pecan my whole life,
But
and I don't
like
want to
in
sound
the
like an asshole.
even in the South, there's disagreement depending on where you were raised,
Okay.
whether it's pecan or pecan. Like it can be either one.
Okay.
that one's not for me.
That is a tremendous draft. I feel like I've learned a lot, and from an anthropological standpoint, I now need to study the area around Iowa City. This is amazing. All right, everybody, enjoy your cottage cheese on Thanksgiving. No, you're gonna hear more from us before Thanksgiving. Tuesday night we have the live reaction show. Don't have to wait for basketball to end. 7 p.m. Eastern time is when the playoff rankings reveal show starts. We're just going to start at the same time. We'll all learn together who's ranked where. I think we have a pretty good idea how that's going to go. And then we'll have the picks. We're going to put the picks out on Wednesday because we got the Egg Bowl Thursday night. We got tons of great Black Friday football. So we're going to get the pick show out as early as possible so we can cover all those games. And also so that Ari and I aren't recording on Thanksgiving Day while trying to eat our cottage cheese. We will talk to you later.
It's weird. It's weird.